Hello, everybody. Jason here. So I had a rather fun attempt at recording one of these streams of consciousness while baking. Not going to try that again, mostly because trying to record things on my iPhone, not quite so good. The baking aspect works great. I made some cookies, but anyways, yeah, because I was trying to record it on my iPhone, ran into problems. Kind of don't exactly have the recordings anymore. Sort of kind of do, but kind of don't. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. Um, so what I want to talk about this time, I actually only have a single topic of discussion. That would be the video that Total Biscuit just put out with his interview with Stephen Totilo of Kotaku. And the only way that I can summarize my response to this is by saying that I think that in that one video that Total Biscuit just put out, he has done more for Gamergate than anyone throughout its entire history, or just in general regarding the conversation about what ethical games journalism is. Now, I'm sure that not everybody's going to agree with this opinion. And a lot of people are probably going to feel that Total Biscuit is being too much of a softie. And, people are going to have a lot of different opinions on the video. But here's basically my stance. First off, I have a tremendous amount of respect right now for Stephen Totilo for having that conversation with Total Biscuit. That takes a tremendous amount of courage and a tremendous amount of risk is involved with something like that too. I mean, he's basically putting his company's reputation on the line, his entire career on the line to have a conversation like that. And I have a tremendous amount of respect. And not only that, but in the conversation itself, it was incredibly illuminating and enlightening because it wasn't this sort of one-sided kind of... His perspective on it was really useful and really handy. The insight that he provided into the kinds of determinations and judgments and opinions and decisions that he has to make as the editor-in-chief of Kotaku was really useful in understanding the challenges that having ethical journalism, that even striving to have ethical journalism brings. And I think that was invaluable, absolutely invaluable to the entire conversation about game journalistic ethics. So, total hats off to him, and as a matter of fact, I am impressed to the point where I am rescinding my boycott of Kotaku, which is a pretty big statement for me. So, yeah, the other reason that I really think that what Total Biscuit just did is better than anything that anyone has ever done for Gamergate is that he's building bridges. He's not... I mean, just to give you an example, oh God, I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Milo... Sorry, I cannot pronounce the last name. Cannot pronounce his last name at all. But the articles that Milo put out were hit pieces. They were designed for slander. And it's not that they were wrong. It's not that I think that... It's not that I believe that Milo was acting in bad faith. But I do think he was taking a perspective that the industry needs to be uncovered and sought out. And that puts things in a very contentious perspective. And it makes it very hard to open lines of communication and dialogue that form understanding between parties that feel affronted to each other. What Total Biscuit did was quite the opposite. He approached it from the perspective of, I have questions. I would like to get answers, and I'm not trying to slander you or attack you or anything like that. I want your opinion on these things. And that was great. It was amazing. I mean, you have someone who is you have someone who is a strong proponent for what Gamergate stands for. And then you have someone who is, in a lot of ways, represents the other side of that. And they're talking. They're not always agreeing. And I don't even necessarily always agree with what they're saying either. But what's being exchanged is the perspectives, the challenges, the issues. They're finding areas they agree on, they're finding areas they differ on, and they're learning things about each other in what they have to face in order to get to the point that it really seems that everybody's trying to get at, which is providing good journalism in games. Just that to me, that seems to be the core issue there, providing good journalism in games. So it was so refreshing. I mean, and this was a long video. This was over an hour and a half long, and I watched the entire thing. I actually just finished watching it before recording this, and I will link to it below. I strongly recommend anyone really anyone who supports Gamergate to watch that video, because I believe that conversations like that are exactly what needs to take place. It's important to have the sort of the hard-hitting attack journalism. It's important to have that, but Gamergate, I feel, has been stifled recently, has been stifled in general, because its entire discourse has been focused around two things: attack journalism and defending against the misogyny accusations. And neither of those really contribute to the overall narrative that Gamergate is supposed to be pushing, and that is to address, to work and discuss and interact about ethics in games journalism. And hit pieces can kind of do that. I mean, they bring to light what's going on, but they don't necessarily encourage conversations. So I'm flabbergasted right now at how wonderful that Total Biscuits interview or conversation really was. And he said at the end that he's got more coming up, and I'm really hoping that we get a lot of diverse viewpoints, diverse opinions, and this whole mix of different perspectives that we get to bring into Gamergate and bring outside of it as well. I mean, this video isn't necessarily targeted at Gamergate, folks. This is a video that anyone, this is a conversation that anyone could listen to and get something from. It's wonderful. I mean, watch it. Seriously, watch it. Listen to it. I mean, yeah, it's long, but block out the time. It's worth it. It is really worth it, because this is the kind of stuff that's going to push Gamergate forward. This is the kind of stuff that's really, really going to create change in the industry, that's going to improve things for everybody. I mean, and if nothing else, consider that, is there any feminist alive with an opinion so radical that could find fault with that conversation? You will find some, but I will argue that you are finding the extreme of the extreme in that case, because it was a conversation, it was a dialogue, it was civil, it was civil, it was respectful, and it was enlightening. And I've got to put my hat off to Total Biscuit for asking really challenging questions and being incredibly respectful and open-minded and civil about the entire interaction. So I really got to put it out there that Gamergate's way forward is going to be conversations like that. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about some of the actual details of that conversation. So if you haven't listened to it yet, please do that right now. Just go over there right now, spend the hour and 30 plus minutes to listen to the entire thing. Please spend the time. It is worth it. It is worth it. Every minute is worth it. Because they really do cover a lot, and it is of exceptional quality. So, hopefully if you're getting to this point, you've seen the video. So, one of the things that I found really interesting, and this is early in the conversation, was when Total Biscuit and oh my God, I'm blanking on his name. When Total Biscuit and Steve Totilo were talking about really early on, they're having this conversation about what's the line that distinguishes when someone needs to reveal their relationship or their relation to the person they're reporting on, or when is disclosure necessary. And it was really interesting because it's really blatantly clear when you have to disclose. That's like, oh, hell yeah, you're like in a relationship with someone, you're living with them, you're providing financial support for them, or stuff like that. It seemed that seems to be pretty clear, but in the conversation, Totilo really made it clear, at least to me, that the way that journalism functions is that you have to build a rapport with somebody. And when does that mimic friendship enough to qualify for a disclosure statement? And there really isn't a clear-cut answer to that. It's hard to say, and I can't necessarily disagree with Totilo's stance about it, that it's really kind of in the hands of the person doing the reporting to make that call, which has its own fair share of problems. I mean, you run into it basically means that an individual doesn't have a great deal of oversight over their stories, over their reporting. Sorry, over their level of disclosure. And I'm uncomfortable with that, but I also understand that in order for journalists to build the rapport that they need to do their job, they kind of have to go through the sort of the motions of being a friend in a lot of ways. So it's understandable that defining a line for that specifically is very hard. And yeah, I found that particularly interesting. I don't fully understand where I would draw the line myself. I mean, I'm not a journalist, and I don't pretend to be a journalist. I'm an analyst. I crunch numbers for a living. I don't interview people. Well, I kind of do, but not really. Not in that fashion, anyways. So it was a really interesting question to me, and I would love to get a sense on where people's lines are drawn and where some of the issues with drawing lines in particular places are. I mean, that would be really interesting for me. I think that would make for a wonderful discussion about any of about disclosure. I think that's a very important subject, and I apologize. I'm a little bit more raw right now with this video than I usually am, because like I said, I just finished watching Total Biscuits, or listening to Total Biscuits conversation. Another thing that I actually felt was really refreshing was how um, Totilo understood the history and the nature of Gamergate. I was really impressed that he got the nuances, you know. He understood where we came from and what we mean, and that we've got this baggage of how we started that, you know, has been constantly pointed to as the whole misogyny thing. He got that, and he seemed to really understand it and really get what it meant for Gamergate in general to be about this important and relevant issue about gaming journalism ethics, but also have the baggage of having come out of a lot of harassment that was targeted at a woman. Now, I still think that there's a degree of gender inequality when it comes to the level of harassment that men and women get in, you know, in issues like that. But I also think that the level of harassment that is dished out regardless is pretty stupid and absurd. And I don't think that Quinn should have gotten the level of harassment that she did. But I also don't think that Gamergate is about that harassment. It stemmed from the same source as that harassment, but it's not quite the same. It's not the same thing. However, it's easy to make the connection between the two, and I think that's the source of a lot of the anti-Gamergate position out there. And it was really interesting because Totilo really seemed to understand that that's what was going on, and he did not misattribute that harassment to Gamergate. So that just impressed the heck out of me. I mean, we're talking about someone who has has every reason, you know, every reason to slander us right now based on all the other information we have, and here he is taking a much more neutral and objective stance that is not necessarily with his or his company's best interest. It's great. It's wonderful. So, like I said, I have a tremendous level of respect right now for Totilo and Kotaku right now, and Kotaku's being pulled from my boycott list. I would love to see many of the other venues that I boycotted doing similar things, you know, coming out and making statements about, well, not necessarily statements, but having conversations. Having conversations. I would love to see all the other venues that I've boycotted having conversations with people like Total Biscuit about ethics in journalism, about Gamergate, about harassment, about these issues. I would love to see that. And I will tell you this right now, that if I have boycotted you and you go out and have a conversation like that, and regardless of your opinions, your views, or whatnot, if you go out there and you have a civil and respectful conversation that does not involve slander and actually involves an attempt for mutual understanding, if you go out there and have that, I will stop boycotting you. I will go back to consuming whatever your product is. This is especially true of the following people / venues. Joss Whedon, because as it stands right now, I am not going to see Age of Ultron when it comes out. I'm never going to see it at this point. Daniel Floyd of Extra Credits. I love the work you guys have done. It is outstanding, but given the statements that you made about Gamergate, have the conversation, talk, get out there and interact and converse. You do that, not just like these blanket statements, but actually have a conversation. Try to understand. Do that. I want to watch more Extra Credits. I really do. I love your extra history thing on World War I. I learned so much. I want to keep learning, but ethically I can't. Please have that conversation. Jamin from PBS Game Show, same thing. I love your stuff. Please have that conversation. I want to continue watching what you do. I want to support you. Here's the big one. Hank Green. Boycotting the stuff you're involved in is the hardest thing for me because I'm boycotting a lot. I am boycotting Crash Course. I am boycotting SciShow. I am boycotting Sexplanations. I am boycotting Healthcare Triage. And I feel like shit because I love this stuff, because it's interesting and informative. I am boycotting TestTube, and I think TestTube is phenomenal. I think TestTube is the best thing that you guys helped to create. I love it. And I'm boycotting it, and I hate it. I hate boycotting you, but I am morally obliged to do it because of what I believe. And because your statements, I think, are morally wrong. But if you have that conversation, if you go out there and you have that conversation, I will be so glad to jump back in. I will re-enable all of my subbable subscriptions. I will re-enable all of my support for everything. Anita Sarkeesian, your stuff is great. The only major criticism I have is it's a little overly narrow focused, and I really miss when you used to caveat your videos by saying that, you know, that enjoyment of media that has these sort of sexist attributes to it is not only okay, but in a lot of ways necessary. I loved that little bit in your videos made them so worthwhile. So much more worthwhile to me. And I miss watching your videos. I miss that analysis. I don't always agree with it. I don't always agree with your conclusions, but I miss that analysis. Have the conversation. Try to open up and understand and approach it from the idea that you want to learn more, not that you want to condemn, not that you want to shut down. I've boycotted so many venues that I enjoy and that I like in the past few months. I feel like shit about it because it's stuff that I enjoy and it's stuff that I learn from. So please, people, everyone who's had an opinion about Gamergate, Will Wheaton, I mean, I'm not going to boycott Star Trek. For me, that's even going too far. But that's a personal exception, and that's a very extreme exception I can get into another day. Will Wheaton, I've got a tremendous amount of respect for you because you were one of the first people who came out as this geeky, you know, this example of the mainstream geek that was okay. It was great. You know, I didn't feel like a social outcast anymore with you around, being on like Big Bang Theory or being in the Guild or stuff like that. I mean, it was great. I loved it. But I can't agree with your position on Gamergate, and it feels unethical for me to do anything that's in support of you because of that, because I feel that your position on it is ethically bankrupt. I mean, that's the basic reason for all of my boycotts, is that I feel that the statements that have been made against Gamergate from all the people that I've mentioned is ethically bankrupt. It's lacking in a depth of analysis. It's not an attempt to open a dialogue or discourse to try to resolve the problem. It's an attempt to condemn, to point fingers. And I don't think it's necessarily an ethical one because it's not based on what the people of Gamergate believe. It's not incorporating their voice into it. One of our biggest complaints is that our voice is getting subdued and suppressed and censored. And to have people tell us what we're about for us suppresses our voice even more. I think it's totally unethical to do that. the worst comments that I read are, I understand that Gamergate believes this, but that doesn't matter because we think Gamergate means this. To me, that is horribly offensive and basically telling me that it does not matter what I think about Gamergate. It does not matter what I believe about Gamergate. It doesn't matter what I believe in. That I am being told what I believe, what I value, regardless of what I actually do. To me, that's ethically bankrupt. And the solution to that, to me, is to have the conversations, to go out and talk and engage and learn and understand, and not to try to approach it from the perspective that you already know what's going on, but to try to approach it from the perspective of you don't have a damn clue. Like, hell, most of the time when I have conversations, I take it from the perspective of I don't have a damn clue. I mean, sure, I'll get riled up and emotional and sometimes mouth off a little bit, you know. I try to avoid that. I'm not perfect, but if you look over my Twitter history, you'll see that I ask a lot of questions. I'm constantly asking questions. I'm constantly trying to figure things out. I don't always word them right. I don't always express them in the right way, but I ask questions and I want to know more. I want to understand more. And I really would love for all of you to do the same. So I guess that's kind of my message, and this was certainly a little bit more of a heartfelt stream of consciousness than I've done in the past. I know I haven't done too many of them, but still, this is definitely more of a heartfelt one for me because it's hitting on something that really matters to me. And I saw today a shining example of what the best of Gamergate can offer, of what happens when you get people who really do care about something and who really want to make it work and who really want to open up to each other and understand each other, what can result in that. And I was just moved. There's no other way to describe that. So this is coming up on 30 minutes. So, and yeah, I'm actually crying a little bit here. It's that moving to me. So I imagine that none of the people that I just mentioned will probably see this video. I hope they will. And I really hope that given the opportunity that they'll be able to find someone to have that civil and respectful conversation with, to really flush it out and to, you know, open up to the individuals in Gamergate to try to learn and understand. Because that's really what it comes down to, it, what I think the goal of Gamergate is. We are a voice that has we are a voice that has felt like we have no voice. And we want to have that voice, and we want people to hear that voice. We don't need people to agree with that voice, but we do need people to hear it. And we don't think that's been happening. And we really want to encourage everybody to help create that voice. Not just our voice, but your voice too. That was one of the great things about what Total Biscuit did, is it wasn't just his voice. It wasn't just Attila's voice. It was both of their voices and both of their ideas and both of their thoughts in that one video, and coming from very different perspectives on it and different angles, and have those conversations. That is the future of Gamergate. That is what it's about. That is what we can create and what we can do and what we can accomplish and the real change and the real impact we can make. Have those conversations, not the ones where we're just telling the people that we're not misogynists, not the ones that we're just identifying how all the conspiracy theory and stuff like, and even with the evidence, even with the evidence, we don't necessarily need to attack pieces. Have the conversations. Try to understand why things are. That's where the future of Gamergate is. That's where the future of the entire field of gaming journalism is, I believe, right now. Right now. Have those conversations. Make this a better venue. All right, folks. That's enough for this one. I'll catch you all later.